welcome back to the Something New show, and I'm Mindy, your host, and I'm so glad to have these special guests with me here today. Here on Something New show, we talk about how to create a life worth celebrating. So I thought, who better to ask about those things than my own team? So today you guys get to meet some of the people I work so closely with. Sometimes I see them more than my family, but I'm sure if you own a business, you understand you work very side by side with all these people every day with what you do. So we've had a blast working together over the years, and I thought we'd start with just introducing them, and then I have some important questions. So why don't we just go around and you guys tell us how do you work with the company, and then how long we've been working together?
Yes. Okay. So I am Alexandra, and I am the operations manager here at Something New, and I've been here for 13 years, so a very long time.
Yes, that's awesome. Okay.
Yes, my name's Sophia. I'm our customer service manager, and I've been here for I'm hitting 3 years.
Yes. Wow. So you get to work with all those lovely customer service issues. I love it. Okay. And then?
And I'm Taylor. I'm the marketing manager, and I just celebrated my 3-year anniversary.
Yes. So that's awesome. Well, it's good to have you guys here. I know you've been seeing all of the show production happening, but I said it's time to get my team on the show and not just have one guest, and I thought that they'd probably feel more comfortable having a few other of their colleagues on here. But I had a question for them before they came on today, because we are very much a growth community, both at the show with all the people that are watching and listening and getting basically a virtual mentor online. In addition to our work culture is a very big growth mindset. I mean, I know you guys know this, but here at our company, for those of you that don't know, we focus a lot on personal development and growth, and always pushing, we do have sales goals just like many companies out there, but then we also have customer service goals, kind of experience metrics that we want to make sure we're always offering to our customers. So there's a lot of growth that happens. And I think that, I'm assuming here, but I'm pretty sure that many people like working here because of how they become a better version of themselves year after year, and you become the best version with a community like that. I don't think it's just like somebody going, oh, I'm going to be a better version this year of myself. You actually have to intentionally plant yourself around others that are like-minded, and that's why we love bringing all of our friends and family along that journey on the show. But in our company, let's focus about that today. Let's talk more specifically, because these are my colleagues. Let's talk more specifically about maybe over the years, okay? And it could be an example, a story, or a nugget or something that comes to mind that has really impacted you on how you've been mentored by me or by Something New, and the experiences that it's provided. Because I think that those stories are going to relate to someone in some way, and just saying, hey, I know it's been hard. I always think the girls, I know it is hard work, but at the same time with it being hard work, and you know what, we'll probably have a lot of our former employees that are super fans listening today, so they know how hard it is. They get it. And if you work in any job, it can be hard, but thankfully Something New has been very special and different, and been a community of like, hey, no matter what, we want to come alongside you. We want to help you reach that goal. And so I'd love to hear, and whoever can go first. It's not like, I don't even know what they're going to share today. This is going to be like a buckle up moment for me. I'm ready to hear it. And you guys have to know that I have learned a lot about my own leadership through the three of them and our team, because there's been times that I haven't done it well, but I've learned and I've appreciated and thanked and come alongside with gratitude, like, hey, thanks for making me a better leader. So I'm thankful for them for that. But why don't we just kick it off and say, hey guys, what's something that stands out to you over your time here at Something New that really makes you go, wow, I learned this?
Yeah, even just as you're talking, I'm like, it's just like this beautiful refining that happens like in the team here in a way that's very encouraging and uplifting. Through community too. But I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is definitely how to communicate in general. There's so many different experiences and backgrounds and situations that people can be in, and communicating in a love language that's receptive to them, and in a body language that's receptive to them too. I think that overall communicating I mean, you're the queen of always saying the only message that matters is the message that's received.
Yeah.
And I think that that is so important, whether that's a relationship with my husband or a relationship with a customer. Just remembering my heart posture and trying to speak in a way that's going to be received well by them and what they need in that season or experience they're going through has like been so important and refined me in a way that I've learned a lot through that.
Well, and I've seen you over the years learn to tweak saying the exact same thing, but differently depending on who's on the other end of the receiving. So like whether that is a person that you're coaching on the team, a stylist that you're training, or if that's a customer service issue, like how you're going to handle it with one person versus another, you're essentially saying a lot of the same things, but shaping it around the
and
person.
just being like conscious of what people are going through and how to communicate to them in a way that's like going to be valuable to them and something that they can receive and digest at that time and moment. But I mean, we've spent hours on the phone, like especially when I started in the management role, like, okay, say it one more time, Mindi. Like, I need to know how you would say it, because how I would naturally say it, and just like learning from even how Alexandra and Taylor would say something, like, because they all have different life experiences that brings them to communicate the way that they do. And so it's just, I think it's so good to like really pay attention to that.
And I feel like it's so good too, because it's not just like the words that you say, but it's also, exactly, like how you say it, your face, your posture, just everything. And then also recognizing how they're responding back as well. It's just, I love that you've taught us so much about that, it's so cool.
Okay, awesome. I love that. Okay, well, we might circle back to communication, but who wants to go next?
Oh, I mean, okay, I'll go, because I think, man, these last 13 years have been a wild ride. But I think it's so cool having, like, what you always say is like, okay, this is our bus. So like, this is where we need to be. Like something new is where we should be, but it's just figuring out the right place for everybody. So like, I have done every single role, it feels like, except for Taylor's, just not doing the social media. But I just love that it's like, okay, I've tried this out, and now this is where I'm thriving, and you have very much given me like trust in, a new area. And, like when I became operations manager, I actually went to Mindi and I was like, how do you feel about giving up ordering? Because this is a huge thing on your plate that I would love to take over. And she was so trusting. She's like, okay, great. Take it, and that's a big deal. Like that's a really, really big deal. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's cool.
Well, I mean, any owner, and whether they're a bridal shop or any sort of entrepreneur, and you're 7-figure sales, it's like it's a lot of pressure to make sure that what you order has accuracy for your customers, but then also it can be a very big error or like an area for errors, and then you can quickly consume lots of extra expenses, which totally hits your bottom line if you don't manage your orders correctly. So you've done it better than me, though. I'll tell you, she has less mistakes than I did. So I'm like, okay, Alexandra, this is your baby now. So that's not the only thing you've taken over. You've taken over a lot of other just big picture thinking ideas. But continue.
Yeah, but no, I just think that is so cool. And just like the amount of trust that you have in people, like this is your firstborn, really. I mean, like this is your first baby, and you have really seen people's strengths and given them tasks to fit those strengths. So I just absolutely love that. That is so huge. And I'm like one of those people that's just like, I have my list and I just want to get it done and I want to do it right. But I feel like, sometimes that's not the best way to do things, especially when you have such a huge business. It's really
so different. Like those are your strengths,
right?
Like, and I love, I feel like even in interviews, like whenever we have people come to interview with us, just like to say how amazing it is of like the culture that you've created is like when they're like, oh, well, what's my growth opportunity in the company? I just think like, well, if it's not there yet, like Mindi will make it for you. If like you're like
so
working your butt off, like if you are an excellent employee, like she will make an opopportunity for you to grow.
It's true.
Like she'll make a position for you. And so I just think that's so cool too. Just like because it plays on like lists are your strength, and like, you know,
Spreadsheets. I'm like, I can do spreadsheets for days, you know?
I know, like the things that you run a report on are things that I never even think to run a report on. I'm like, oh, okay. And so it's really fun because actually as a CEO and an owner of a company, I love knowing that information, but a lot of times I'm just too visionary and I'm thinking about the vision, which is its own important place.
Yeah.
But like that visionary person isn't necessarily always the person that's going like, okay, let's run a report on that and see, like, so I love having you guys can probably already tell everybody has such a different skill set on our team, which is why I think we're like the mega team, because we have the strengths of all the players. Right. And if we were all the same, it would be pointless. I mean, we cannot be all the same. And so there have been times, and we look really happy and stuff, but there have been years and where we've had moments of friction or hard conversations, or we didn't see eye to eye on something, or it could feel threatening when someone has an idea, but that's maybe not their lane. And then you're like, wait, I'm the expert in that. But you got to remember, like, hey, we're on the same team. So I think that's something that we continually come back to as we meet regularly, and we try to meet weekly. Some weeks is too crazy, but I think that's something that brings us back together. Remember, we're all on the same focus, and to not be threatened by each other's ideas and skill sets. Because I think normal people, when let's say an Alexandra comes to me and says, hey, this is my thought on, might feel like, oh man, I'm stupid, I didn't even think about that. Like they could be threatened by that. But for me, I'm like, yes, she's on my team. Like she thought of that, and she's just making me even stronger, and vice versa. And I think the way we talk is more, have you thought about?
Yes.
Like, hey, what do you think if we tried this? Or is never a put down. And I feel really safe in our leadership team to share ideas.
Well, that's modeled in your leadership too. Like whenever you lead, it's never like okay, this is what we're doing next, and you guys have to like it no matter what.
Yeah. It's open for discussion.
What are your thoughts about? And sometimes there's those hard times where, like, you do have to put down the line, obviously, and you do. But you lead by that, and so then we can follow suit because your example is so seamlessly.
Thank you.
Well,
I mean, this is an example of the show, right? I'm sure I would love to hear your guys' reaction when I was like, so I'm going to do a show.
Like the million other times where I'm like, okay, put the seatbelt on, here we go, I guess it's happening, because Mindi had an idea. You know?
Sophia and I were both just like, of course. Yeah. Awesome. We were just like,
that's
I think it's really, I'm super excited. I'll have to tell you why I'm excited, and then we'll get back to more of what you have to say. I'm super excited because what I feel like deep down in my heart is that this place is so special. It is incredibly unique. There's like moments happening right behind us right now of people shopping for their dress or their most special life moment, and we create that for them every day. But what our culture is like a light. In the workplace across America, what we have here is so special. And so what I was really passionate about is how can we bring those best practices, those like heart issues, those things that we have to fight for. I mean, we really have to fight for this to be amazing. How can we bring that to the world, and all of you guys, our listeners, to say, hey, like, I want that type of work culture too. And even if I'm not the boss right now, or I'm not the manager right now, or I'm not the starter of the company, even if I am an employee, you are still a leader, because like Craig Groeschel always says, is leadership is influence. And so you can influence your workplace even if you're not the leader. And so I just believe that, and that's why I love hearing you guys talk instead of just me, because I'm like, you guys can influence your workplace wherever you are and make it a better place to show up every day. Okay, go back to Alex.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I just think that's really cool how you like shaped everything, and but I would say like my next thing is just like talking about goals. You always come to the table with like these huge, massive goals, and like, okay, I'm gonna start a fashion show, and one day it's gonna be at the Broadmoor, and it's gonna be like incredible. But it's almost like you break it up into little attainable goals throughout the way to make it so that we can hit it, and like, at the beginning of the year, we map out our whole entire year. Like, what promotions are we going to run here? Like, this is the dollar amount. This is how many brides we should see. This is, how many appointments we should take. I just love how you have given it to us in such a manageable way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I do think a fault of CEO visionary people is just to say, this is my idea.
Go execute it.
And then good luck.
Yeah.
And I do hear what you're saying here, because I think that backstepping that and just expecting your team to just accomplish a goal without actually giving them a pathway is one of the faults of strong leaders sometimes. And I think backing that up and going like, okay, so let's take that big thing and break it down and say what would be the bite-sized chunks to get there. And then I think we all think it's possible. Then I think this other really beautiful thing kicks in, and it's belief. And when you see that whole map and you're like, okay, I have a whole map of what our year is going to be and how it's going to be in bite-sized chunks, then the whole team has this magic ingredient called belief. And when you insert belief into someone, like anything is possible. Anything is possible. And I think of that with our team. I'm like, I look at everyone on our team, but I'm like, I believe you can be amazing. Even yesterday, I was doing a job offer for someone, and they were asking me what the hardest part of their 90-day onboarding would be. And I said, honestly, overcoming the mindset you're going to have that you can't do it.
Well,
and they were like, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's going to be hard. It is not going to be easy. And anybody that I've ever hired, I know in my mind that they could do it. I know 100% that they could do this. And so what will change in the 90-day process when I hire you and train you is your belief on whether you think you can do it or not. And so let's say day 60 and it's hard and you want to quit. I said overcoming your own weak mindset of like, could I or couldn't I? Just because you fail a bunch in those 60 days doesn't mean you can't in 90 days. So I really do think that if we map it out and make it attainable, and like I said, the 90-day onboarding, I said there's benchmarks to meet along the way so that at the end of the 90 days you feel like, oh, I did do it, because I want you to know I believe you can. But do you believe you can?
I love that too, because a lot of times, people come in being like, yes, they look at Sophia and they want, what she does, but they haven't done what she's done yet. They haven't done all the hours of studying. They haven't, done all the hours of working with brides and practicing and all of these things. So I think that's really great.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I believe anybody could do anything they put their mind to, especially in America. There are very few limitations to what is possible in the country we are blessed to live in. I mean, you can really do almost anything. It just takes a whole lot of work and not getting bent down in your mindset. So
that mental strength.
Mental.
That's,
Okay, Tay.
That's literally what I was going to talk about.
Okay, you tell me about it.
It's so awesome, because I think that's the thing that I came into this job not really having, was like the mindset that you really can figure anything out. Like anything is figure outable. And I just was kind of here because I just loved the energy and I loved the atmosphere and I wanted to be a part of what you had created, but I hadn't really seen like goals yet or like development. That wasn't on my radar. But I just, your mindset, how you approach things that are out of your control or out of our control, or when problems arise, of just being like keeping your, like just staying neutral and being like, we're going to figure it out and let's just do this and let's do this. And that completely changed how I feel like I viewed life. Not even just like a job. But your immediate reaction anytime something happens, which they do, especially when we're doing as many big things, of just being like, okay, let's do this. And even if it was just like the most wild thing, just seeing that over and over again from you, I was just like, and that, no, it like, you start to believe it. And like you just said, like belief is so powerful. And I remember the first time that I was not a confident person, I feel like, not going to this job, but the first time Mindi gave me a call sheet, I had never done like outbound types things before, and she gave me a call sheet and she's explaining to me how to do it, and I just started crying because I was so overwhelmed with like confrontation, and she was just like, it didn't even faze her. She was just like, you've got this, like you can do anything, like you've got this. And I feel like that's something that I've been really excited to like now feel like I can empower as a leader. When girls come back to me and they're like, I'm so overwhelmed right now, like how do I do this? I'm like, hold on, you got this. You can do anything. You have this set up with you. You just gotta take a second and you got it. And
it's like it's contagious. Like the belief that she had in you is like, then you had belief in yourself, and now you can instill that in the girls that you lead too.
I just think about all of those times where we all like get in a room together and we're just like, okay, great. And then it's like, okay, we have done this before. We can do this again. Mindi says that all the time, where it's like, okay, we've been through this before. We can we know what to do in order to get over this hurdle. And I mean, that we have had so many situations that have occurred even in our own personal lives where we're like, okay, this is crazy, but like together we can figure it out because we are all so unique and we all do have a different way to overcome these problems, but together we can do it.
I think people too, because you are such a light and your company is such a light, the store is such a light, and everything is done so well because everybody cares so much that you brought onto your team. But I'm like, the amount of times I've had people ask me, is everything just perfect all the time? Because it just looks like it.
It is, yeah, it is. Totally.
And I'm like,
Right.
100%.
and I'm like, no.
What world are you living in? Okay.
But I'm like, that's just.
Oh, they say, what did they put in your Cheerios?
Yeah. Like, why are you guys like that? Yeah. It's because it starts with the mindset of just being able to take anything head on and not being phased or like stressed by it. And having that posture too of even just like communicating like where you're at, you're like, it's always like we're good, we got it.
Yeah. So I think one of the real common things about Gen Z, who I love, and I have a lot of people that work here, and there's studies that say by year 2025, I just heard this yesterday, by 2025, 70% of the workplace will be Gen Z, which is crazy to think about.
2 years.
Okay, so that's a really unique statistic, and I think one of the things I heard with that is that and this was all by Dr. Tim Elmore, he's amazing, and he was saying that the number one word that Gen Z uses to describe their emotional state when they're like saying, hey, how are you doing? Ready for the word? Overwhelmed. Okay, that's like the number one repeated word. So what I'm about to ask you guys, and think about it for a second, is how you show up regularly, even though you very well could be overwhelmed. And I know all of your stories, and I am deep within it, and I care very much about each of you. But how are you showing up to work, still present every day, with a smile on, not feeling overwhelmed? Because, you know, that is an easy place that your generation can connect with, and that's their number one descriptor. So I'll say this, is that I know that a lot of that overwhelming comes from the fact that they are receiving so many messages a day, not necessarily DMs. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just visual messages, you know, from their phones, from friends, from whatever. And then there's been this crazy thing where part of their young years, you know, early 20s or high school was a little bit sabotaged by the pandemic. And now I do think they want to come into the workplace and really bring their authentic self. I do believe that. But I also know they're coupling that with overwhelm. And so I'm saying, you guys are like bright lights. Like, I feel like the luckiest person in the world that I get to work alongside of you guys and rub shoulders with you, because it is like a blast. Like, we have fun together, if you can't tell. We have fun together, even though we know what's expected. I would say this, is that anybody listening and saying, how do I build that? I do think it's the balance of investing in people personally, caring about them in real life, but then also having clarity. You know, Brene Brown always says clarity is kind. And I'm like, okay, having clarity of, we each have our own lane. We each have a list of expectations and goals and metrics that we're measuring weekly, monthly, yearly, so that we know how we can support one another, and even what we need from each other to do our jobs. Because we even need certain, like, I can't do my job unless she has done hers, or vice versa. She can't do hers if she's waiting on me for things. And so there's clarity, kindness, all of that. And then there's also personal investment and being able to know, hey, what's your like main thing this year that would mean a lot for you to either experience or do, or like, you know, Alex has told me when she's like, I think I want to have a baby this year. And so we try to like give her that time to be with the baby that year, or it's like she wants to go on a trip or build a house or whatever it might be. And we try to like really come alongside and support each other in like, if that's your main thing, like we're going to make sure you get that, like however we can, and we're going to cover, because we have that personal relationship in addition to the clear work expectations and the like, hey, this is your lane. These are what you got to show up with every week, and then we come together and say, here's our work, and that's accountability, right? But I know it's still overwhelmed because the world we live in, and I know each of you guys could say, I could identify with feeling overwhelmed at times. Maybe not even just at times, but maybe a lot of the time. But how do you do it? Because I'm like, I'm from a generation that's different. I didn't necessarily have the overwhelming message. I didn't get a cell phone until I was 22. I mean, it was a totally different, and it was like not even a smartphone. It was like a flip phone with no pictures. It was like old school. Okay, I was like, I'm so cool on the cell phone. But the blessing in that is that my interpersonal probably was like off the charts at a young age because there was no distraction. And so I had a real good push at that at the beginning. And then also I would say I was in the school of like, you got to bust it if you want to make it. So like, you know, I was working 2 jobs and I was doing all those things. And I didn't even have the capacity to think about being overwhelmed. But now I fast forward, I'm like, man, people in their 20s right now have so much more. And so I hope if you're hearing this and you're not in your 20s, that you more, instead of frustration, you come alongside Gen Z and you go, wow, like grace for some of the hard things that they were thrown at. Like in certain ages and demographics and stuff like that, this was not necessarily their situation. But I'm not saying that every workday needs to be a therapy session either, because I know there's the CEOs out there that are like, well, I'm not here to just like be like, I'm so sorry, and like hug on people all day long, because we have work to get done. So it's the balance of both. But I will say, I want to come alongside. If this is going to be 70% of our workplace, you know, what are you guys doing so that I want to hear from you? How are you staying not overwhelmed so that we can make sure those are the things we encourage our Gen Z staff, teammates, or whatever to bring into their lives, those habits. Because you guys have habits that you're doing to make sure you, I mean, look at them. They come to work and they have a smile. I mean, I don't hear about all, I mean, I do know some of the stuff, but I don't hear all about it, because when we come in, we're here to work hard. And I love that about you guys, because it is special, and I believe that about this generation. I believe it. Okay, what do you guys want to say?
I'm like,
How do you come in and not feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously there's always something to work on, you know, like there's different areas in my life where I'm focusing on ways to get less overwhelmed in. But I think for work purposes, it's so important when like you have a good home life, in the sense of, now that you can't always control that, right? Like there's different factors you can't control, but what you can control is the thing that bring you joy. Like the things that you're looking forward to in your week. And I think that having those things in your weeks like can really help you have a healthy mindset when you walk into work, because you know it's not your only thing. So sometimes when you invest like every single cell and fiber of your being into your workplace, I can see that being so overwhelming, and because then you don't have space for the other parts of your life. But I think even just investing 1 day of the week into yourself, or 1 hour of the week into yourself, of like, oh, I have this to look forward to because this is something that brings me joy, and it celebrates me and who I am and what I want to do. I just think that that's given me a lot of balance in my life.
Which is why, time out, if you are a boss or a leader or a company leader, I want you to think like, do you encourage that of your team members to have a thing? Do you, like, they might need to be spurred on to be like, hey, even if you don't want to tell me, Sophia, what your thing is, like, are you taking an hour this week?
Yeah.
I want you to take an hour to do something that totally brings you joy, that makes you feel so happy and loved, and makes you, you know, think about life differently. Are you doing it this week? And making sure that you're encouraging them to do that.
And I think so many of my friends are like givers. Like us as, I think women in general can be very, like, let me take care of you first, and let me take care of you first. And I think that so many of my friends I've been talking to, I'm like, what do you do? And then they've grown up most of their lives, like finishing school, trying to figure out where they want to be, getting married, and then they're like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what would bring me joy. And that like self-discovery process again is like so important, to have that balance, to be like, work isn't my only thing, but then when I come to work, I can give it my 110%, because I still have things that are bringing me joy too, and I can find joy in work and stuff, but it's not my only source of satisfaction, I guess.
Or value, even.
So that's been important for me.
Okay, good.
I would say for me, just like a very realistic, you know, change that I've made in my life is just giving myself time in the morning, just to kind of like get myself, you know, just give myself a little bit of peace. So before I come to work, I'm like, babe, you got the kids. Like, I am going to spend the next hour just getting ready. Because for me, I'm more introverted. So coming to work and being so excited for all the brides, it's you know, it's a lot. And it just takes me a little bit to like get in that super positive mind space. And then it's very helpful to come to work and then be focused on other people too. Like, you know, we always say you're meant to work with that bride. And so getting a chance to believe that and say, you know what, I am here to help this bride. I was meant to help her. And it's almost like focusing on somebody else and just like trying to give them the best experience does so much for my heart. You know, it just like almost helps my emotional state just be so happy. You know, because it's like being there for somebody else. At least for me, that's just huge.
Well, it kind of takes that huge pressure of whatever you think you're going through.
Right.
And then you hear what they're going through and you're like, whoa, I better not complain because that's even a bigger, I mean, I can't imagine having that situation. And then the empathy comes. And when you have empathy, then you're like, oh my gosh, like I am so fortunate. And so your problems, which are very real, I'm not disregarding. Totally. You have, you know, feelings and they're very real feelings. But I think getting out of yourself and seeing other people's, that probably is a huge impact.
Yeah, it's great to just like set aside the problems that we have and then just focus on something else. And then at the end of the day, okay, your problem may still be there or it could just be totally gone. You know, it's maybe not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah.
Good.
My dad always used to say, say it. So my dad always used to tell me, like whenever I was a teenager and I was, you know, getting worked up about things, he'd be like, in 5 hours from now, will it still matter?
Yeah.
Like in 5 hours from now, are you still going to be this upset from it? Tomorrow, when you wake up in the morning, are you still going to be that upset? Because if not, let it go now, so you don't have to waste another
5 hours.
5 hours another night. Yeah.
Wow, that's a good perspective. That's really good.
I am such a like deep feeler that I think that was like one of the things that I grew in the fastest, the earliest, like being here was just like learning how to keep things in their proper place. Yeah. And like not giving things that don't require so much attention, like this much attention. Like giving things just what it needs to be like acknowledged, dealt with, not ignored, but not focusing on that above all else. Just my overall mindset in general is feelings are not bad. Like being overwhelmed or acknowledging things that are happening to you and not stifling that's not a bad thing, but it's just receiving that information and like putting it in a proper place. So kind of just like taking inventory of like what's going on in my life right now and how am I looking forward to how I'm like fixing this if this is like an ongoing problem, like getting in a car accident and it's going to be like 3 months of dealing with insurance. It's like
not that you can relate to that.
I'm like just keeping it in the proper place where it's this literal lingering thing that you're dealing with 2 phone calls a day for 3 months and just being like, this is just where I'm at right now. And it's okay to be like a little bit more dealing with things, but just keeping it in the place and that there's so many other things that are going on in my life right this day or this week that I have to be excited about and just not letting the things that you can't control take over just your life. And then also, like you said, setting up in the mornings. I don't remember who it was, but it was something from you, some speaker or some leader that we got the privilege to like hear from. And he's talked about setting up your day. Might have been Jordan.
I think it was. You know, my husband. It was my husband.
But that really like spoke to me, like setting up your day the night before. Like, and so I really started doing that, like making sure I have a moment at like 7 to 8 p.m. the day before to take stock of my whole next day. And just so I'm not walking into things being stressed because my schedule is everywhere right now, but just being like, okay, like this is what that's going to look like. That's what that's going to look like. And then I wake up not feeling like panicked, like what is going on for today?
Yeah. Okay. I have another question for you guys because this is so fun to hear your thoughts. This question is a little bit more about the fact that I think everyone, any age group, kind of idealizes and they talk about how they have this awesome job, even though I don't know if they all feel that way, or they're looking for an awesome job that's 100% remote. I'm so lucky because I have a 100% remote job, or I'm looking for it, or I only want a remote job because I feel like the narrative flipped after COVID of like that being like such an awesome benefit to have a work from home job, which we've talked about here, how that changes your workplace to be extremely transactional instead of relational. So I would like you to talk about why did you guys choose to have a job and what are the better benefits? Calling out those people that are listening, saying like, maybe it isn't as glamorous as it looks to have a work from home job because there are some very, there are some like fake presumptions about how awesome it really is, when in actuality I think there's way more health benefits to an in-person relational job. But I think that it might be good to just give them some, from your perspective, some thoughts on why is an in-person job, relational atmosphere, why is that in your mind the route you chose, and why is that better, you think, actually? Let's debunk the myth. Let's debunk it, okay?
I just recently became like full in-house and was like kind of part remote. And one of the things and we talked about this so many times, but it was really hard, is just the disconnect. When you're like, especially when you're working on like marketing a brand or like working with people and being relational and these kinds of things, having the disconnect of not having like all of your work done in the presence of the same people, or the presence of the brand and the company itself, I'm like, I feel so much healthier and more productive getting my stuff done now, not like being so connected and like rooted in like when I'm actually working.
Yeah, just to let people know that are listening, a lot of her job is marketing, and it's not necessary for you to have to be in the building, but you made a choice, a conscious choice to say, hey, that flex part of, like, you've been full-time this whole time, but that personal choice to say that flex portion of my job, I really actually connect with it better when I'm here. And so, I mean, that's crazy, because like I said, I think, and I hope, actually, I really hope that in a couple years it swings back. That pendulum swings back, where we see office buildings start to fill up again. We see people starting to want to be in a workspace again and connect, because, I mean, community, I know all the benefits of community, but community is essential. But as you glamorize and you think this remote thing seems amazing, I want you to think twice today, because you are sitting with people in your generation possibly, or even there's all generations listening, but like where you maybe thought that working remote was going to be the key to happiness, but it might not be. So why did you guys choose in-person jobs instead of going to the marketplace and being like, hey, I have skills I can offer online?
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's obviously a very interesting question, because I do have part of my job that I do from home. So, but I have seen so many differences. So like doing my job at home, it's really nice because I can just crank out, those things that I need to get done. Whereas like I'm in the store, it's just a lot of community here, and it's like, people want to like talk, and it's that's such an amazing part of that. So that is, I would say, like the biggest difference is just the community. When you're around girls and you guys are like having a hard day, we joke like, okay, see you at 6 p.m. because we're not going to see each other all day. There's just like such a, hey, like I got you kind of like spirit too. Yeah. We'll go in the collection, we'll just laugh, being like, oh my gosh, my feet hurt so bad. Like, you don't have that from home. You don't get to be like, Sophia, this is like what I'm kind of walking through at the moment. And like, you don't get that encouragement, when you're just sitting on your computer at home.
Or even, I was going to ask you about a customer. Like, so there are some people that work from home that work with customers, versus you're working with customers, but you're always in person. Yeah. So tell me about that difference.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like such a huge difference, because when you're in person with someone, you can make them feel, I feel like, a certain way a little bit easier too. Like, you can get them excited. You can, you can do those heart swaps. It is so much harder over like when you're just like typing on a chat, or if you're really just talking on the phone. I feel like people are less people when they're like on the phone or on the computer. Does that make sense?
Do you think it brings you any like sort of endorphin high or buzz to
for
be
me,
around versus at your computer at home?
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes into what I was saying earlier too. Like, sometimes it's nice to like just like put yourself aside for a second and just celebrate this person and just be with this person. And it is very interesting to get to hear everybody's stories, and you don't get that working from home. And just like the warmth. You don't get warmth at home.
It's easier to read and feel people's energy when you're this close. Yeah. Versus like through a screen or through a cell phone. I mean, what did you tell us about when you were doing all those Zoom meetings?
Oh, just that it can drain your battery when you do Zoom over and over and over, because when you're in front of a computer, you're actually trying, you don't even know this, but your physiological makeup is trying to connect with someone, just like we could do this, me and you, in person, but it is like so hard to do that over a computer screen. It's actually impossible to have the same amount of connectivity over a computer screen versus in person, because you can feel the energy of someone, but it's like a phone battery draining and trying to search for service because you're trying to connect, but it's over a computer screen. And so you're giving it your all, but you are draining your battery. So someone could do, let's say, 2 hours of Zoom versus 2 hours in person, and 2 hours in person, they could feel completely energized afterwards. Like, that was amazing. Or 2 hours of Zoom and be like, oh my gosh, I feel like I worked an 8-hour workday. Yeah. So, I mean, it changes.
So I had my neighbors over for the first time the other night. We just met them. We're in like a new development, and they're a bunch of younger adults living together, like roommates. And it's so cute because our backyards touch, and every time our dogs are out, they like make a point to like come talk to us. I think they're so hungry for community. Aww. And when we had them over and we were talking to them a lot, they all work from home online, except for one of them. And so they're talking to us about how they just moved back from California, and they're just like so hungry. And I mean, these girls, I am like a top tier extrovert. Like, I love having people over. I love like friendship, and I love being like at the parties, in the parties, all the things, just like in the sense of like good energy, you know? And these girls brought it. I was like I was expecting like a chill night at my house, and these girls were like ready to like laugh and sing and dance and hang out. And I was like, this is so interesting, because I feel like when I was making friends when I first moved here, it was the opposite. Like, everyone was really standoffish before COVID and all of that. And so it's just so interesting seeing that hunger again for community, like not having that maybe in your work life, and where you're going to find that. Because I mean, being completely honest, like after college, like where do you find that if you're not having like a weekly?
And if you just work from home, where do you see people?
Commonplace. So for me, I'm like, I get the high of like working with people and making people's memories and celebrating them, because I just love being like my friends like hype girls, and I just like love chatting with people. It gives me so much energy. Doesn't mean that I'm not drained by the end of the day. My cheeks hurt from smiling. I like can't get there. But it's never from a place of like, oh, I've got to muster this up, you know?
And do you feel like there's any mental health benefits for you guys? And we don't have to get scientific necessarily, but just knowing like, I have to get ready. I have to be out of the house. I have a purpose, a place to go. Yeah. I need to be there performing, like doing my thing alongside other people that are working their hardest. I mean, is there any sort of like endorphin like boost or something like that, where it's almost like going to a workout class versus like your own Peloton at home, which is awesome. I'm not saying Peloton, there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm also just saying, like, I wonder if that also helps with that overarching theme of overwhelm. Do you actually feel a little bit of a boost, like a little hit of like, oh, this is exciting, I have a place to go today and get ready for?
I think it's that sense of like feeling needed and like feeling
purpose.
Wanted. And that sense of accountability, like when you were talking about the work from home versus kind of working online and or in store, I'm sorry. I was just kept thinking about like, well, it gives you so much more perspective when you're rubbing shoulders from someone. Like, okay, well, when I'm sitting in this chair only at my desk, like you can try to communicate your side to me, versus like when I'm kind of working alongside of you, I could feel like I can understand what you're trying to communicate more, because I see that you have a different perspective that you're trying to communicate. And so, but I just think that like that accountability and that sense of like need and feeling needed and feeling like, you're bringing something to the world that's like purposeful is so awesome.
This is so funny because Pastor Sean Johnson literally just talked about this the other day, and he was just talking about how like people need to like get into church again and not watch it on in their living rooms anymore. Like, you need to go in and have the community. It is so powerful just to be able to be around like-minded people and be around the people who have like very similar goals to you. Like, it can better you as a person so much to be around those people. What is that quote? Like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future, right? I think it's the same kind of thing. Like, go into work, pour your heart out, and then like, let's see your future. If you're just sitting behind a computer all day, every day, what does your future look like? What are you striving for?
Yeah. And then it does become super like, okay, I'm just trying to do this job for an income to do the real thing, which I just want to pause on that, because to me, I'm like, the real thing should be every day. You know, and that real harsh segregation to me has never been very motivating. As just a hardworking person myself, I'm like, no, I don't want to just do a job to then go turn it off and then do the real thing. I'm like, why can't the real thing, the thing we enjoy the most, be woven into our jobs? And I think that that's where you have to really think about, okay, what kind of culture is it? What purpose do I have in it? And how can I support and be supported, you know, by the community that is there? Yeah. And so, I mean, I really do hope that the in-person dynamic starts to be more of the glamorous option for people, because I do think it's going to help people mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the things, if they can get back in person.
Yeah. I'm curious what you think about, like, okay, maybe, you know, I think a lot of people watching is like, okay, they work at a bridal store though. You know, like, we work in a cool place. We do. I mean, there's hard days, like we said, but, like, I'm curious what you think about the people who are, like, in those situations and they're, like, glamorizing those things, but, like, how do you think that they can get to a place where it's, like, maybe they are working from home or something, or they're, like, they're enjoying that, they're celebrating that. Like, what do you think are some of the things they could do in those situations?
Well, I think that it should be a conversation, if at all possible. Again, you don't have a voice right when you join a company, right? You have to earn your voice. I think that's a really thing to remember, is like, we can't just like step in and be like, okay, this is the way I think it should be done. I think people have to earn that voice. But once you do have a voice somewhere and you've shown how hardworking you are, I think even saying, hey, what are your guys' thoughts on some element of in-person, whether it's, let's say you're all across the country and you gather once a year, you know, maybe you just have like an in-person summit, you know, once a year to get people in front of each other's faces, or maybe you have like regional gatherings that like the people in this part of the country can get together twice a year and the people in this country can get together twice a year, just to be more than a computer screen to someone. I think there needs to be some sort of interpersonal overlap. But I mean, I understand using talent and being able to use talent from around the country is a total benefit for some companies. I mean, it is amazing because it isn't necessarily all needing to happen in person. But if you can weave in some more in-person experiences, I think your team's going to be better for it.
Right.
So, okay. Well, that was heated. That was fun. I definitely want to talk more. But for the sake of our listeners who have been chatting it up with us, I hope you feel like you've been in the room. I want to wrap up how I do every show, which is to have my guest share what their favorite drink is. So let's start to serve the favorite drink. Okay, whose drink is this?
That's mine.
Okay, what is this, Taylor?
Okay, coffee wasn't the vibe today. This is sparkling lemonade.
Sparkling lemonade.
So
okay,
good.
I love that.
Okay.
All right, and then what did you get, Sophia?
I brought my, like, healthy juice.
Oh, this is your
like matches your blazer too. Look at that.
I love it. You are very. I'm seeing. Look at these colors. I know if you're listening on the podcast, Sophia's in like a burnt orange jacket with a chocolate brown dress, and then her drink matches.
It's like orange on the top and like brown at the bottom.
Alexandra, what's your drink?
I have a chai.
You have a
tea.
chai.
Yes.
Okay, and then I have an iced coffee. I'm an always cold coffee person. I don't know why I never order something hot. I always order cold. But we like to end every episode with a good cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Can we do a good cheers? 1, 2, 3, cheers! Cheers! I love it. And I want to say thank you guys so much for joining us today on today's episode. We loved having you. I feel like you were in the room having table talk with my company here at Something New. And if you enjoyed this episode, like it, subscribe it, share it with your friends, and also follow along on our Instagram handle, The Something New Show. All right, have a great one. We'll see you guys later. Bye. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review, and share with a friend. Also, follow The Something New Show on Instagram and Facebook. If you want a fuller experience, watch the show on YouTube to help you create a life worth celebrating.